You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. Your love changes everything. There's something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning to dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love. Something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing.
Good morning, Rooted Men. Matt Ryan from the Rooted Ministries. Pleasure to be with you this morning, this Friday. The last day or two of May here already. Halfway through this year of 2025 by the end of this month, which is crazy to think. Okay, by the end of the month that we're starting this weekend is what I mean to say, but you got me. You're with me. It's funny how sometimes time goes slow, sometimes it goes quick, but whenever we look back, it seems like it always just flies. So, fully into summer now. Hoping you all had a great Memorial Day holiday and week. Kicking off your summer, spending some time in gratitude. Right? Just like we live in gratitude for the sacrifice that was made for us to be free. I think that Christians have a pretty unique perspective, maybe, on Memorial Day and understand what it means to lay down your life for someone else. I hope that you were able to honor someone's memory, maybe serve somebody in honor of somebody else. If not, it's not too late, right? Let's always kind of take that inspiration of Memorial Day throughout our year. And though all forms of service and all lives of service might not look the same, they're all inspired, and they're all life breathed by God himself, who created us to serve each other. So, it's kind of what we're going to get into today. We're starting Psalms today, which, there's a lot of. There's kind of different sections of Psalms. Psalms, for those of you who aren't as familiar, used to be kind of the worship book, right? Almost the thought of the hymnal that we have currently. Not one single writer in Psalms. No one set out to write, this is a book of how we worship and express ourselves. But so many different writings came, whether it be writings of worship and joy or pain or distance from God, right? There's many of these different themes, as there tends to be with any artwork. There could be different themes, different inspirations, and so I'm excited to dig into Psalms and look into all the different things they have to add. Now, of course, we know that King David did write a lot of Psalms. A lot of them were set to music. In fact, David, and I imagine others, invented instruments during this time just to be able to put these words to music, be able to, I guess, in a way, to make their words of worship bigger than just words, bigger than just their own journal, right? It's meant to be shared. It's meant to be sung. It's meant to be learned and passed down in a history or a tradition of oral history, right? That's the only way that anything was known, was by what you could pass down. And certainly music has a way of sticking in our ears and being a little bit easier to remember. So just wanting to kind of think about that as we go through Psalms. That for a long time, this was, of course, modernly, we have all kinds of worship music. We have all kinds of, ways to hear it and access it daily and hear it on the radio, but you got to take yourself back to a time where none of that existed. In fact, you weren't always even around people who would understand what you were talking about or sharing that message. And so, put yourself in that place, thousands of years ago, very different societies, what it meant to have words of worship written down, what it meant to have songs and music in a world that I don't want to say was bereft of entertainment, but it was a whole long way from what we experience now, where we're so overstimulated with entertainment all the time. So just a thought. So this compilation of worship starts with Psalm 1. Not very creatively titled. It was the first one written down. It's very, very familiar to us because it contains the words of our, there's got to be a better one than that. There we go. The word, this is where we get our name from, the rooted from one of the verses or one of the places where we talk about, the tree planted by streams of water. So blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night, who's really living in it, not just thinking about it, but chewing on it, digesting it, applying it, right? Blessed is that one. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff. Scroll that down. That the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. So, besides giving us the imagery that brings firmly rooted, what are we doing here? What are we talking about here, right? I think one of the themes is it matters who we hang out with. It matters what we're investing in, what inputs we have, what we're allowing in, who we allow ourselves to be. You know, there's a famous, I guess, life hack or whatever kind of life enrichment quote out there that you'll be the same person you are 5 years from now, except for the books you read and the new people you meet. Right? There's another statistic that says our net worth will be within a percent or two of the 10 people we spend most of our time with. And that doesn't mean we need to hang out with people we don't like or we need to change the way we're doing things or whatever. But what it does mean is there's reality in we become what we're surrounded by, right? The joy, the happiness, the peace that God promises is all inside of us, right? It's not dependent on the outside. Those things are inside of us, but they're by choice every day, right? So we choose the inputs. We choose to be joyful. We choose the perception, right? The readjusting our hearts to see through God's eyes. We choose to see the good in life. We choose gratitude over complaining. And those things are so heavily affected by our environment, by what we're surrounded by who we're surrounded by. And, you know, the New Testament tells us, right, the bad company corrupts good morals. So we must be discerning, deciding, and intentionally investing ourselves in godly relationships and allowing others to invest in us the same way. I love the imagery, right? You know, God has this way. Jesus' stories and parables were all about things we can all relate to, even though we might not all be farmers, right? We might not all be carpenters. We might not all be shepherds, but they are simplistic messages that we can understand, even if we can't relate perfectly to it, right? So we look at the blessed, the righteous man versus the wicked, right? The blessed is like a tree. The wicked is like chaff. I don't know if you know what chaff is, but when you farm wheat, right? So you need wheat to make bread. It's, you know, kind of an essence of life thing, right? When you farm it, you're trying to get, so wheat, you know, is a tall stalk like grass, and all of the seed, the grain, is in the top couple inches, and all the rest of it is basically just grass. It's just a vessel. And so when you go and cut it, and it separates the wheat from the chaff. You might have heard that before. The chaff really is just the superfluous plant, the stuff that's meaningless. It has no value. It has no nutritional value. It's not being harvested. And the way you separate it is that this kind of a separator and a hopper will catch the wheat while the wind will take away the chaff. It will just blow it away into oblivion. So if we think about that picture, right, like you can think maybe a dandelion that has turned white and you see it blow in the wind and the pieces are just gone, scattered forever, never to be heard from again. And that's this imagery of the wicked man, where the righteous man is this tree that's firmly rooted next to a stream, abundant supply of water, nutrients, everything it needs to produce fruit in season. So what does that mean to produce fruit, right? We get real anxious about Am I producing enough fruit? Is it all right? All these kind of things. You know, to produce fruit and to have the leaves not wither is this assurance that you will always be healthy, yes. But what is the fruit of the tree? What's significant about it? A tree doesn't eat its own fruit. A tree doesn't need the fruit in any way. It doesn't gain nourishment from it. It doesn't eat it. It doesn't sustain it. Nothing. It lives its whole life drawing nutrients from the ground to produce fruit, to benefit others, to produce leaves that don't wither so they create shade for others. And that's really what I love about this imagery. It's not just that I'm going to have an endless supply of nutrients to suck up, right? If I'm rooted by that stream and I've got healthy water and I've got the phloem and xylem, if I remember right from 7th grade class, I don't know what science class that is. Anyway, life science or whatever. Biology? No, not biology. Anyway, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying. I can keep sucking up those nutrients. And as I bring them in and I'm bringing in the right things, I'm producing fruit. My leaves are not withering. And now I stand here firmly, not shaken by the wind, not moved, planted right here to always be there for someone else who needs my fruit to survive, who needs my shade for rest on a hot day while they stop to get a drink at the river nearby. In the same way, the deeper we get rooted into his word, the deeper we're connecting and surrounding ourselves with the right people and chewing on the word every day, the more that fruit will come out. And we'll never eat that fruit. But boy, will it bring sustenance and meaning and value and quality to the lives of those people around us. I just want you to think of things that way. God has made me to serve others. He's designed me to be like a tree that can give respite to people in need, that can be a safe place to hold on to, that can provide shade from oppressive heat, that can produce fruit and nourish others. There's this thing I always say when I pray over food. I always say, may this food nourish our body as your word nourishes our soul. And that's the kind of fruit we're talking about here, right? It's just like Jesus says to the woman at the well, the water I give, you'll never thirst again, right? That's the kind of that spiritual fruit that we want growing out of us naturally because we're rooted in the right place, because we're taking in the right nutrients. And we're just here. We're just going to be here and we're going to serve what needs you have. I love the imagery. I hope you do too. It's a good challenge for you today, man. Think of yourself as growing not for you, but growing to serve others well. I love you, man. Let's have a great Saturday and let's make it a firmly rooted day. And may someone see